In this video, we're going to look at one of the last components or physical parts of robotics, and that is gears, what they are and how they can be used. And this little activity is a great way to sort of understand how gears work, and I will leave some thought questions for you at the end to explore. So what you're going to need is a channel. These things are called a C channel because if you look at them horizontally, they make a C shape. Okay, so I'm going to put this here on my desk nice and straight. I'd grab a big one. Okay, so one that is almost a foot long. You're then going to grab a bunch of these bronze bushings. Okay, so these are the larger ones. I'm trying to remember the size off the top of my head, but they are the larger bushings. Okay, so you want a bunch of those. I have 6 here laid out. You're going to want some different gears. So I have 2 small and a large one, and then you're going to need some axles. Okay, so you should have 2 short axles in your kit and then a bunch of long ones. So just grab 3 axles in total. The length really doesn't matter. What we're going to start by doing is figuring out how do we get this on here in a way that we can interact with it but not have to use these adapters to make it permanent. Okay, so these are different devices you can use to attach to the gear itself and make it more permanent, but we're not going to use these for this lesson. We're just going to use these bushings and use some gravity to help us. So we're going to take a bushing, we're going to apply it into a central hole, okay, so that the shorter flat part, the rim, sits above the metal, and you can see it secures it in there quite well. And I'm going to take my axle and place it into the bushing. Okay. It's nice and sturdy. I mean, if you start shaking around, it's going to fall apart, but it's going to work for the purposes of what we're doing here. I'm going to take my large axle, or my large gear, and I'm going to place a bushing on it from the underside, and I'm going to place that whole thing on the axle. Okay. What that's going to do is going to allow the 2 bushings to hit against each other and move and rotate freely while keeping the gear nice and snug on the axle. Okay. So now what you can see is I have a piece of tape here to help highlight the direction or the rotation, and I can see that it can rotate now. And it shakes a little bit, but it's not horrible. And just to help things, I'm going to put some orange marker on the tape, make it a little more visual on the camera. I'm looking at the preview and it doesn't look great. So what we need to do is get the rotational movement of this gear and apply it to something else. Okay, so there's a few different things you can do here, and one of the common things that we're going to look at in this course is how to use a servo to drive a gear, to translate our motion and either gear it up or gear it down to change the speed of rotation. And when we talked in the last video about applying a cap here to our servo, these pieces of metal can also be applied directly to a gear so that the servo turns a gear. I'm just going to put that back to the side. So we're going to take another bushing and we're going to take one of our small gears and line it up and figure out where do we have to place our bushing. And one of the easiest things to do is just sort of pull it in until the teeth connect, make sure that they turn together, and then look down. Okay, so I'm going to use this hole here. Again, I'm going to take my bushing, place it in upside that way, take an axle, place it in, take another bushing, place it in the opposite direction, and then take my gear and place that on together. Okay, then I'm going to re-link the teeth, and now I can see that when I rotate one gear, the other gear rotates as well. Okay, and I have those little orange pieces of tape to help highlight that on the video. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is make it so that the tape sort of all lines up. Okay, and I'm going to add a 3rd gear in here, or a third bushing, so then a 3rd axle, another bushing, and then my 3rd gear. Okay, I'm going to try to line up that tape like I mentioned earlier. So all of my tape's lined up. And what we're going to do is look at the effects of what happens when I rotate one gear on the 3rd or 2nd gear. Okay, so one of the first things you're going to want to do, and I'm going to give you the answer on the video here, is look at how is the rotational movement translated across the gears. So we're going to line up our 3 gears and figure out if I rotate this one here on the right, 1 full circle, how many rotations are over here on the left. So let's start rotating it, and you can see that they move at exactly the same speed. Okay, but the difference here is that when the 2 pieces of tape on the small gears line up, we'll notice that the piece of tape on the big gear is no longer over here where my finger is, it's now over here, 180 degrees away. So if I give it another full rotation, we'll see that we have our original tape configuration. So what I want you to do is explore what happens when you mesh the gears small to large to small, 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 large, or large, small, large, okay, because you have other gears in here. I also have a box of various size gears in the back of the room that you can grab and try out as well. So not only do I want you to focus on rotational speed or the amount of rotations, I want you to focus on the direction of rotation. If I rotate this one clockwise, what direction are these two turning? Okay, these are different concepts that we can use in our robotics applications to make a really cool robot. Okay, so then if you want to switch the gears around, you can literally pull out this whole sort of apparatus, move the bottom bushing. Okay, maybe I'll move it over here to this side, line everything up again. And again, the whole purpose of this video is for you to explore the concepts. So let's see what happens here. Okay, and then look at even rotation speed. Okay, so this is lined up. If I do one full rotation here, how many rotations does this do? If I take off the big gear and let's say I move it, how do I bridge that gap? Is there a way that I can maybe bridge the gap by putting a large gear here and using another channel in a way that can maybe line up the gears in a way to bind those teeth together? Okay, so different ways to apply the gears, so that way when you have stuff spinning, we can have different motions. Okay, so explore it, have some fun with it this class. That's all for this video, and it's already longer than what I wanted it to be. Thank you.